I'm Shannon Sullivan, the Stories Yes program coordinator for Museum on Main Street. Stories Yes was born out of the Stories from Main Street project, which is Mom's story collecting initiative, except it goes beyond simply collecting stories. We help to provide equipment for use in communities, so the stories tend to be a little bit more in depth, and they're multimedia, including photographs, maps, anything that the kids want to include that they find to go with their stories. Stories Yes has been going on for about 5 years. YES stands for Youth Engagement and Skill Building. So research, interpretation, and learning local history are obviously the skill building part, while working with the host organization is all about engaging kids within their local community and their local identity as well. Kids use professional quality equipment that goes beyond cell phones to do research, including conducting interviews or oral histories, and using local resources such as libraries, museums, and photo collections. And then, based on what they discover, they create their multimedia nonfiction stories. Stories Yes is designed as a complementary program to the traveling exhibitions, so it can be done either before or after an exhibition comes to a community. It is conducted independently in winter and spring, so there's a pretty firm timeline for Stories Yes that is separate from whenever the exhibition happens. We've had communities that have successfully implemented Stories Yes well before the exhibition comes, well after the exhibition comes, and some have even done it at the same time. But the big impact of Stories Yes is that it's an opportunity to focus on engaging local kids, just like the exhibitions are an opportunity to engage your community. Aside from the technological training, the goal of this program is to show kids why their community and their perspectives matter. And it can also help to sustain the relationship with the Smithsonian beyond the temporary exhibition, which can be very valuable as far as community engagement goes. In some cases, it's possible to draw the programs out for as much as a year. Stories Yes is privately funded, so we ask communities to submit a proposal to be our partner. So it's not a grant from us, but a partnership. And we let you know by early July if your proposal is selected. So the end of the program is uploading the kids' digital stories onto the Stories from Main Street website. Stories from Main Street's online collection is a repository for a variety of rural stories, and the collection itself demonstrates the power of stories out there that might not otherwise be heard. And the fact that the collection is growing and contains stories from across the country is a very powerful representation of the importance of rural stories within the context of the American experience. One reason why the Stories from Main Street website is important for kids to know that that's where their story is going to wind up is because the Smithsonian name inspires kids to work hard on their projects and create something they're proud of. And then they can also use the project and the collaboration on their resumes and college applications. Generally, the Smithsonian name obviously helps to get teachers excited, schools, youth groups. It can really help to get so many different people involved. Now, if you browse the online collection, you might notice that it's mostly video stories. That tends to be the direction people have been going. We don't require video stories. In the past, some communities have done things like websites. Ideally, video stories would be about 3 to 5 minutes long. If you've browsed our website, though, you'll notice that they're generally much longer than that. There are some that are as long as 20 to 30 minutes. It's actually very hard to do such short 3 to 5 minute stories, but they're really an ideal length for this online format. And it also helps hopefully to make the project seem more doable and not quite as intimidating as a longer video project might be. Even if the videos wind up longer, the idea that they're shorter I think really helps to contain expectations and simplify the project, at least from the outset. Last year, some of our Mississippi students were able to interview Dak Prescott, who was not at the time the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, but he is now, so they knew him before he was famous. And that group of kids also interviewed some really interesting people, like the first female NFL referee. So there's potential for organizations and kids to make some really neat connections with people. But the most important connection is obviously having the host organization to connect with kids and potentially schools and teachers as well. We also ask communities to celebrate the stories locally in some way. A lot of times they'll hold a premiere, especially if they are video stories. And if your exhibition is hosted after the Stories Yes program, then there is an opportunity to show the stories in the exhibition. We allow you to use a little bit of the technology funds to have display equipment also purchased so that you can demonstrate what the stories were that were created within the exhibition. So Stories Yes changes a little bit every year as we improve it. There are 11 communities in 4 states working with 2 MOMS exhibitions, and the exhibition obviously provides the topic framework for the student stories. There are 3 to 20 kids participating in Yes in each of the 11 communities, and the participant age range has been 5th to 12th grade over the course of Stories Yes. It does tend toward high school students. I personally really like that middle school target age group for this program because it helps to create an audience for the host organization that remains in the community for a longer period of time, unlike a high school senior that graduates and potentially leaves the community the very next year. If you've got middle school students participating, then there's potential for them to come back and do the program again the following year if you continue to do the program in some way. The organizations get to keep this equipment that is purchased, so it's possible to sustain the program. That stipend does vary by year, but generally the breakdown is $2,000 for honorariums for the Yes managers locally, as well as at least $3,000 for the technology. A little bit about our partnerships. The state humanities councils are really involved in an advisory capacity. Unlike the exhibitions, I work directly with the host organizations. MuseWeb is also an important partner. They've created multiple resources for this program, such as storytelling guides and how-to videos, some of which are available on our website now. And they provide some really wonderful step-by-step information about each aspect of this project. The most important relationship, though, is the one between host organizations and local youth, as I've already been talking about. This relationship is really symbiotic, and helping to establish this connection or deepen this connection between youth and the organization helps to support them both in the long run. The impact on schools varies by community, but Yes can really help to highlight the resources available locally and, again, deepen that educational relationship between teachers and schools and the host organization. And other local organizations can obviously be partners. It just depends whether it might be libraries and museums, youth groups. The sky's the limit as far as partnerships go with this program. And it really just depends on what the resources are available locally and also your program model. Program models can generally fit into 2 categories. One is part of a school project, and the other is extracurricular. I've broken it down into about 4 different types here, but it's actually different, I would say, within each community that's done this program. It just depends on what their needs are, if there are already connections there to different groups or individual teachers, organizations, that sort of thing. A small group of kids is common. I mentioned that there were 3 kids in several of our communities participating this year. And each might create their own story individually, or they might create stories in groups. Moms doesn't have expectations about how many projects are created, and we emphasize quality over quantity. We really want students to dictate the direction of the stories depending on the interests that they discover while they're conducting their research. There are 2 main roles that we ask every organization to have, and one is the yes manager. This person is generally part of the organization, and their job is to really establish the program model and to make sure that the host organization is connected to youth and make sure that the other roles are filled as part of the YES program. The educator can actually be either the same as the YES manager or the technology advisor. That's often how it's worked out. But if an organization is a museum or library that already has an educator on staff, then that can be a wonderful person to work with. Teachers are certainly a possibility as well, but we have found it's difficult in the first year to work with teachers directly. However, that's not to say that they can't be advisors and help recommend students that would be good to participate in an extracurricular program. And in some cases, teachers have worked together in a school to make time for some students during the day to work on Stories Yes, whether that's during homeroom or perhaps excusing them from classes. Different communities have done that as well. The main thing that the educator is responsible for is to help the youth determine what stories they want to do. So they train youth on research, conducting interviews, and the story narrative so that it all comes together and is able to coalesce into the story that the kids want to tell. The tech advisor I've separated out over here a little bit more on the right simply because it's a very unique role to this program. And this person is generally outside of the organization because of their unique expertise. But their role is to help the organization decide what equipment and software they need both for this program and things that they can use in the future. As I've already said, the organization keeps the equipment, so it's important that the equipment continues to be useful, both to help sustain this program, we hope, and to just use it on other projects, other benefits that help organizations out, such as organizations that collect oral histories. You'll have a wonderful coterie of equipment and software to use for that. And then the other thing that the technology advisor does is provide technical support to kids while they are working on their projects. So generally, when they're conducting interviews, it's learning about how to do that. If it's video interviews, there's quite a lot to learn. And then towards the later stages of the project, it involves making sure they can edit and create their stories effectively. So the stories belong to the kids and the communities at the end, even though they wind up on the Smithsonian website. And we really want communities to appreciate what this project is. And the stories are a wonderful and simple way of demonstrating that, you know, highlighting the local resources that are available in a community, particularly what the host organization is capable of doing. And it really helps to strengthen those educational connections as well. Even if an organization is unable to work with teachers in schools the first year, perhaps it might work out more once the teachers understand what it is the host organization is trying to do and figure out how it can fit into a curriculum better. And youth, of course, gain academic and real-world skills. Self-confidence is also a huge bonus that we've seen come from this program. They also learn things that are intangible, things that teachers don't necessarily get the opportunity to teach in school, such as simply talking to adults. Kids have to go out into the community and interact professionally with people. They have to schedule interviews and then conduct the interviews, and then they have to go out and do research and talk to libraries and archives or other resources. It really helps to give a sense to kids what the value of their community is. And also the public history part of it, it helps to give a sense of their community's place in history. And one of my favorite statistics from our evaluation last year was that before Yes, 34% of kids thought that adults listen to young people. And after Yes, 82% thought that adults listen to young people. And then our project leader in Minnesota last year also said that this program and working with the 3 young women she worked with was the highlight of her career. So there's a really powerful connection that gets made between adults and kids. And they both develop a different view of each other and respect for each other, which I think is one of the most wonderful things that comes out of this program.